the connecting factor is as long as your goal is to connect with and speak to young Africans across the world, whether in Nigeria, in West Africa, South Africa, in the diaspora, in the US, Canada, the UK, Europe, wherever. As long as that's what you're trying to do, that's what we already do every day through all the things, all the formats that we create, whether it's like social media, whether it's making content, whether it's shooting films or documentaries, whether it's doing parties. So whether your product is you're a gym or you're a fintech or you're a lifestyle brand, whatever you're trying to do, if the challenge you have is or what your goal is to connect with young people, music taught us how to do that. And now we want to take those learnings and that framework that we built to support other industries. And I feel like that then opens us up to like an entire world of new opportunities beyond just one industry. Music is, in terms of like popular culture and young people, that's probably the most universal language. And so if you work in any of those spaces, I find that it's such a privilege because you can then take that ability to anything and sell anything or promote anything.
African Entrepreneurs Podcast.
All right. So, yes, Dolapo, Tosin, and our audience, welcome to another episode of African Entrepreneur at Berkeley Podcast. As you may know, this is essentially a podcast where we spotlight African founders or intending founders who are building things for the continent or who are just of African origin building things for the world. They tend to tell us about their experiences, share some knowledge, and eventually we just have fun. Today, we are talking about the creative economy, and we are discussing with one of the founders of a startup that is building, or should I say startup now, because it's 10 years plus. So a company, yeah, a company that is innovating in a space that we find very interesting in Africa, which is the creative and technology space together. He's building with Sound Africa. We talk sound. We talk sound. Sorry. He's going to be telling us about his journey, telling us about what the potential of the creative sector is, and essentially telling us if Africa can be a pioneer of a newer creative infrastructure that the world can emulate. I think one of the things we might just start with is, first of all, tell us who you are, tell us about your journey, and how did you get here?
Okay. Interesting. Who I am, I'm a young man from Ibadan in Oyo State, Nigeria. That's my city. I always rep for my city every time. My entire life in Ibadan until 2018 when I moved to Lagos. So I did like primary school, high school, university in Ibadan. I always grew up, always like smart kid, typical, like many of us, like same, you used to do well in school, a lot of expectations of you had a lot of expectations of yourself, and also like everyone around have a lot of expectations of you. In high school, I was really good at like math, physics, very quant heavy, but I was also good at like the social sciences and stuff. So I was just like pretty rounded. Went to university, studied electrical engineering, but I was always interested in like literature, reading books, writing, music, and those sorts of things. I at some point in school I realized that I wanted to explore more of like the artsy side of myself because it kind of became obvious that what I was learning in school was not like, from an engineering perspective, I didn't think that I was going to be equipped with the skills to become like a world-class engineer based on the things I was learning. And so I just became more interested in spending my time, writing and just building that community around like literature, poetry, music. And I was still doing okay in school. I started with a pretty high GPA. So I knew that no matter what I did, I was going to graduate to at least a second class offer, like no matter how badly I failed. So I just was coasting, to be honest. At some point, I came into University of Ibadan actually with a lot of like hip hop, love for hip hop. Like that's really one of the things that shaped me and the way I see things to now. There were a number of like young rap collectives in America, like Pro Era from New York, Odd Future from LA. They were very influential because it was just a bunch of young people around the same age as I was. They were like making music, skating, painting, doing all sorts of art forms. So it's like a bunch of people with different arts forms and expressions that they make music together, release music together. And I just always saw that as something super cool. And I also had friends in Ibadan then who were into that sort of thing, who liked rapping, who liked, writing music, writing poetry, all of that. And so I would say like I spent a lot of my time in uni just building those sorts of communities and working in that regard while obviously balancing that with continuing to do well enough at school to not be in any sort of trouble. But sometime in final year, I just woke up one day and I was like, I know all these people and they all like music. All of us were making music as a hobby, whatever. Some people make music as like an actual job. But like some of these people just don't know each other, right? It's like some person is not in University of Ibadan, in another school, some person in another country. Some people were even in the University of Ibadan, but they just didn't know each other. It's like just separate friends from separate places. And I was like, what if I created this group chat that I just added all my friends that I knew loved music and just so like what would become of that? It's like what could happen? And so I did that. And yeah, like I just created a group. It wasn't with Talk Sound at first. I just named it something because I couldn't come up with like an actual name for it. And I think a few days in, it just occurred to me like we talk sound, like we're talking about music, we talk sound. And that's really how it happened. And I feel like from that day that I created that group, it has just sort of directed my life in a direction. Like since the day that group began to exist, it has influenced everything I've done in my life since that day. Because this was like September 2016. Because since then, even though yes, I've had like a career, like I've worked in a bunch of places, I've done different things. Like I had like a very strong data science phase where like I was teaching data science. I was doing that at work. I had a digital marketing phase. Like I've had different phases. But one thing that has been consistent has been We Talk Sound, and just the fact that there's this thing that I want to do in this creative music industry, and it's sort of forming itself, because it's not like from the first day I knew exactly what it was going to be, but I just kept following like the trends and following whatever was happening, and that would lead to another opportunity or another conversation with someone who would open my eyes to something else. And the community just kept growing, and yeah, that's just what's happened over the past 10 years till now, where I now do it full time, and that I now have a much clearer picture of what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to build, where I'm trying to go with it, etc. Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that, because that's I feel like it's a typical but still unique Nigerian story of having expectations for yourself, like be an engineer, be a doctor, but then and like you're good at it. It's like, okay, yeah, like I have all the characteristics for doing that. And then like life happens and you're like, I actually like these things too. And and I'm really proud of you for being able to say, hey, I want to focus on that. But you mentioned something at the end where you said it has now turned into something where you understand the vision now. Can you share a bit about what that vision looks like?
Okay. So in the beginning, it was a community, just that, not a business. There was no commercial angle to it. It was just a group of people, growing community. We support each other. Yeah, that became. We've gone through different phases. There was that phase for like a few years. That sort of helped people know the name and know the brand and know that there's something called We Talk Sound. Even though what We Talk Sound was then was not clear. Like people just knew that it was this group of people that came from Ibadan, make music and do stuff in music. But what are you? Are you guys a record label? Are you guys a media platform? Are you guys a tech platform? Because then we even used to like build games and stuff like that around music. So we just used to do anything that we thought was cool. So we had that phase. Then we're going to a point where people started to sort of show us what the business opportunities were. So, for instance, like I'll get in a conversation with someone that works at a record label, and then they will say, "Oh, my artist is releasing music, or we're trying to do this activation. We've seen the kind of work that your community does. How can you help me make this thing more popular? How can you get people in your community to talk about this thing for me?" And I think it was then that it started to dawn on me that, oh, there could be a business case here. Like there could be something here that could lead to something bigger. And so there was that phase, and we started to now do those services. At first, there was like I think it's worth talking about this part. So it's like there was a long time where I didn't know how to talk about money. Like I didn't know how to like negotiate. I didn't have a rate card. Like I didn't know how to do all that stuff. And so we ended up doing a lot of stuff for free when we could have said, oh, this is how much you're going to charge. It was just the big artists that we liked. It just felt like the passion and the excitement of doing the work was greater than whatever we're going to get paid. Or so we didn't even care about all of that. And even I just didn't know how to have those conversations. I didn't know how to say, oh yeah, this is how much you want to charge. This is what this means. And so I had to learn that. I had to evolve significantly over the years from being someone who was just a creative at heart, who just wanted to make cool stuff, to someone who understood that, okay, this is not going to be sustainable if like you don't figure out a way to monetize it. So yeah, we had the phase, and that now became a thing. Like, you know, we started to do like PR, marketing campaigns and stuff like that for a lot of like big labels, big artists. Like when Empire, for instance, came into the market, they were one of the people that actually helped us realize what the potential was from a business perspective. Because for some reason, they liked us, they believed in us, and yeah, they just there to give us campaigns.
And Empire is the record label that has Ashake and like
yeah. Fireboy, YBNL, Kiss Daniel, Benson. Yeah, so they came into the market, and I can't even remember how that connection was made, but we just there working with them, and they would have multiple releases that would help them handle marketing and PR and all that stuff, and that just became a thing. We're able to obviously like easily now sell that to other labels, other artists, like Aristocrat Records, to do a lot of work with them. And yeah, we started making some money, and it became clear that, okay, yeah, there's something here. But in all of this, I was still working, like, you know, I worked at KPMG for a very short while, and that's where I met Testimony.
KPMG boy.
Such a short period that's like, I barely even remember it. It's like it was like 5 months or something. I just ran away very quickly. So I worked at Bolt as well. They were Taxify then for like 1 year, and then I joined Google in a contract role, and then I eventually got a full-time role, and then before I left last year. So then at some point it became, okay, we've done all this stuff. We realized that just doing this service was very dependent on like if you're running an agency or any sort of B2B service, that's not tech, that's not automated in the way that if you're doing it, if it's like SaaS or something, people are just paying a subscription. This one is like, you have to wait till they have another project, then they'll come to you. And you just quickly realize that that's not a very sustainable way to build a business. So what else can we do? What else can we do? Then we realized that in the space that we work in, everyone sort of needed to own a media platform. Like, yes, we're a community, but to push the agendas of the artists we're supporting or whatever else we're trying to do, we could not continue depending on other platforms like magazines or media platforms or editorial platforms to tell the story in the way we wanted. Because then it will mean that we need to pitch to them and sort of beg them, like, oh, help us promote this thing. And we're like, we should put more emphasis and pay more attention to building our own audience. Yeah, we already had a community of like, you know, a few thousand people. It's like, how can this scale beyond that to like the public instead of just a closed community? How can we build in such a way that, you know, we build our social media presence to the point where we can reach hundreds of thousands of people and then be able to tell the stories in the way that we want, not depend on someone else. And so we started to do that a lot. Then evolved into like producing like visual content. So we started to do documentaries for artists, started to do like stuff like that. Now we shoot music videos and pretty much make any form of visual content. Then at some point we got to a point where it became clear that we had done a lot of work digitally, but we needed an offline community because there's a level that you just can't reach community building if you can't translate that to real life, to like physical. And around there, like parties were becoming a big thing, like raves, parties were becoming a big thing in Lagos. And so we started to do that as well a few years ago.
Nice.
And that has become like one of the core parts of what we do. Like we have like events that we do frequently that appeal to different audiences and they are pretty hot, like in Lagos. They're one of like they are some of the events that people would list as like, if you were to say, oh, what are the hottest parties in Lagos? And so we did that, and then about a year and a half ago, we decided to get into like the actual music business proper, like the record business. Like, okay, we built all this infrastructure that hardly anyone else has. Only a few companies actually have the range that we do in terms of the infrastructure that we built. Most record labels are just record labels. Most agencies are just agencies. But we have agency, media, production, live experiences, and it's like, if we sign artists could benefit, or if it just works directly with artists, whether it's distribution deals, label deals, management deals, whatever form of deals, they would benefit from the entire infrastructure that we have built as We Talk Sound. Because We Talk Sound is this sort of like almost amorphous concept where it's like, yeah, today I see that We Talk Sound has done a documentary for the French embassy, but tomorrow they're promoting this artist. The next day they're working with an alcohol brand to promote this. The next day they are doing a party. The next day they are building websites for other people in the space. It's like, what exactly are you? And we've kept it that way because it's like, when you look at the most successful companies in the world, in tech, in creative industry, in music, in media, that's sort of how they are. It's like, yeah, Google is most popularly known for the search engine and Gmail and YouTube. But again, Google has Google Ventures, which has invested in random things. Google has self-driving cars. Google has interests in pretty much any digital industry. So it's like, you don't need to box yourself into, oh, this is what we are building. I've also learned that from a VC perspective, VCs like you to start off very narrow and then expand. We've sort of done the opposite, where it's like, where we've experimented with like multiple verticals, and that has now helped us know that, oh, this is where more of the value is. Thing that will make us a lot of money, but then this is the thing that we need to do to enable that to be stronger. So in terms of what the vision is from here onwards, it's like, it's really going back to basics. And the basics are that what has gotten us here, what made us stand out, and what makes us stand out still is the community that we have. People, like, record labels exist, agencies exist, media platforms exist. But what we have is that we didn't start off trying to build a business. It was years of laying a foundation, building a brand name, and connecting directly with people, empowering people, supporting people, that laid the groundwork for what we are now able to do. And the good thing is that the size of the community, the in terms of like how big it is, like how many people we reach, and also how deeply we engage with them, sort of reflects on everything that we do. So if the media side of what we do, for instance, we're able to make money through people paying us to advertise, like whether it's their music or their services or whatever, just like any media platform. The bigger that community gets, the more we're able to make from that. The agency where we work with brands, work with artists, the bigger our own community gets, the more leverage we have when we're talking to a brand to say, okay, you're trying to promote this thing, you're trying to sell this product, it's pass this message. We're not just coming to you as just any agency. Also a community of 500,000 people that we directly reach. Like, before we even run any ads or do any billboards for you or engage influencers or whatever, we're coming with this value. We're not just going to tell you what to do and help you execute it. We're first of all going to connect you to our own community, which is quite sizable. And we feel that is something that brands and artists and everybody finds interesting, because it's like, you can pay someone to do a campaign for you. Sure, they're just going to do it like a task. But here it's like, we are tastemakers ourselves. And we have a community that we can directly influence. And so that is very valuable. And one thing we've also found is that has now opened our eyes to the fact that a lot of brands need that. So a lot of our clients, agency-wise, have been music fundamentally up until now. So it's been like artist labels, people within the space. But a new thing that's happening, and a change that we're embracing, is we're broadening that into more like brands across multiple industries. The connecting factor is, as long as your goal is to connect with and speak to young Africans across the world, whether in Nigeria, in West Africa, South Africa, in the diaspora, in the US, Canada, the UK, Europe, wherever. As long as that's what you're trying to do, that's what we already do every day through all the things, all the formats that we create, whether it's like social media, whether it's making content, whether it's shooting films or documentaries, whether it's doing parties. So whether your product is you're a gym or you're a fintech or you're a lifestyle brand, whatever you're trying to do, if the core of the challenge you have is, or what your goal is to connect with young people, we know how music taught us how to do that. And now we want to take those learnings and that framework that we've built to support other industries. And I feel like that then opens us up to like an entire world of new opportunities beyond just one industry. Even though music remains at the core, because music is, in terms of like popular culture and young people, that's probably the most like universal language. Like at the end of the day, if you were in any country in the world that has Nigerians or Africans in it, and you play Burna Boy or you play Fali Cooper or whoever, people are gonna be like, "Oh, who is that? Like, what's going on?" Like, music, sports, that's very universal. And so, if you work in any of those spaces, I find that it's such a privilege because you can then take that ability to anything and sell anything or promote anything. So that's sort of the vision on the agency side, like to be able to now work across different markets, across different industries. But it's building off of the community. So the community is still the base. Like as we continue to expand the community, everything else becomes more valuable. Because now, if we had a Pan-African community, for instance, that was like across the entire continent. If Google is trying to do a campaign for Africans, Nike's trying to do a campaign for Africans, they don't need to talk to someone in South Africa, someone in East Africa, someone in Ghana, we can just be the one-stop shop because we build that community that covers the entire market and the diaspora. So that's what we're trying to do. Music, on the music side, it's something we're already doing. Our hypothesis from the beginning was, instead of just finding local artists and trying to export them, which is what everybody's doing, right? Because there's more money in America, Europe. We want to be more like a bridge where we also realize there's a bunch of artists in America, the UK, across the diaspora that are of African origin or Black, making music that can appeal here, but they have no idea how to connect back home. And the unfortunate thing is that even though it's ironic that even though the revenue and most of the value financially for music now is in the West, even for Nigerian music or African music, it almost is like you can't like, even if you're already living in America where that's the ultimate market where everyone is trying to blow up, you still have to blow up back in Lagos before people in America accept you. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are sort of in that middle where they live in America, they're making Afrobeats or Afro R&B or whatever, but it's like the Nigerians or Africans in America would not just like, they will listen to a Shea Vibes or Shea Vibes is even big now, like a more like a Balorankin or a Bad Boy OML or Jerry, before they listen to the person that's living beside them that is making the same kind of music. Because like it just doesn't feel as authentic. Like I would rather listen to one from Lagos or the one from Ilorin or wherever, the north or the east, than Port Harcourt, which is like one of the cities that a lot of talents coming out from. Than you're in New York and you're singing like. So one thing we've started to do is like help build that bridge where it's not just finding talent here and exporting to the US or wherever. It's also finding there and helping them build a base back home, which then can help them connect better with the people in the markets that they are. That was our own thinking when we got into the record business. Like, let's find artists who are in Canada. And we've done that. Some of our artists are in the US, Canada in particular, US and Canada. And it's been interesting because you see an artist who, before we started working with, they didn't have a lot of fans, they didn't have a lot of numbers. And now they're able to do shows, come to Lagos, do a show in Toronto at the same time and sell out. So in terms of production, it's like, we've done a bunch of documentaries. Like we've done some work with the French embassy. done some of our own stuff that we're looking to license to, like, streaming platforms. But again, it ties back to the audience, because as the community continues to expand, the value that everything we create holds is just more. It's a different ballgame if we made a film or made a documentary and went to Netflix and said, we have 5 million, an audience of 5 million people that we reach every month organically. Even before you put any marketing spend on this, we have this audience and across everywhere Black people are. So that's why I say that everything falls back to basics. Basics is the community.
The community.
Community that empowers everything else. Anyone build any of these things on their own. Like, people have film studios, people have production houses, have record labels, have agencies, have media platforms. The unique thing here is that we built all of it on top of the community. And so the community as the community continues to grow, every IP, asset, brand, film, music we create continues to get more value. And so it's now in how do we hyper scale that community, like grow it significantly, and start to now build it outside of what, like, based on what we've done in Lagos. How do we replicate that in other markets where there's a high population of, like, Africans and Black people? And so the goal is to essentially become the for Africans locally and in the diaspora when it comes to, like, creativity and youth culture.
Nice.
And continue to scale the businesses that we've grown out of that, including, like, the media business, the agency business, the record business, the events, and the production side. And that would obviously entail having more coverage in, like, some of our storytelling now. We've broadened it. It's no longer Nigeria focused. We're now just, covering more things that are happening in the diaspora across other parts of Africa. That would involve us having teams and people in different markets as well. Whether it's to discover artists there, is to find clients there. That would involve, me having to travel a lot more and just spend my time between Nigeria and, like, 5 other cities. Because at the end of the day, the potential here is very significant. Anyone who's able to consolidate that audience, that, like, audience of young Africans, because that's really who every brand is trying to reach. Like, when I worked at Google, in the last year of my working at Google, my job was to help to connect the brand and the company to young people through social. So, and even while I was working there, other clients we had, or partners or other companies we're working with, similar. It's like everyone is trying to figure out this young population. It's not even about what industry you're in. As long as your product, whatever it is that you're trying to sell, to connect to young people, you can't push messages to them in a traditional way. There's a way that people want to be spoken to. There's a way that you have to be authentic in how you approach everything that you do as a brand. And brands, especially the bigger, older brands, are struggling with how to do this. And that's something that we learned how to do. And so that sort of is the picture of, like, going forward, like, it's building everything on the community, like going back to the community and scaling that community outside of just Nigeria, West Africa, to rest of Africa and the African diaspora, to the point where when you want to know anything that connects with youth culture, young people, and Africans, whatever it might be, whether it's a brand campaign, whether it's something to do with music, whether it's something to do with film, we talk sound.
We talk sound. That's good. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I follow you on Twitter. I follow you. It's called X now. I follow with Dog Sound back in the day. And always in the whiskey parts of the video debate, that, like, giving my own unsolicited opinions. But I've not seen with Dog Sound that way. And thanks for sharing that. That's given me a very good vision of how it is. As you were talking, I just asked Claude what the median age of Africa is, and it's 19. So that means if you are a brand and you want to speak to that market, or you want to sell to that market, you definitely have to change your brand to fit into that segment, and
Yeah.
it's the pop culture, it's the Afro pop culture, right? It's the this Ira style that the girls like, not other people. It's shady vibes that the guys like. It's you have to make sure your product fits into these people's pop culture. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Question for you, since you are in the industry itself. If you were speaking to a random person in the US, for example, that wants to really understand the Africa creative economy and the media economy of the continent, how would you describe it to them?
I would say that it depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to an investor and I'm trying to get them to invest, that's a different conversation. If it was just I'm trying to actually explain what is really happening to you, like I'm trying to just paint a picture, I would say that it is critical to the present and the future of the continent. It is one of the segments or areas where there is actual potential. And it's not just potential, it's not vague potential, it's like potential that some of the actualization of that potential is something we see every day. There's a lot of interest in the space, but it's significantly underfunded, undersupported, and there's a lot of talent that has potential to, go global, take over the world, etc. But there is a significant lack of infrastructure to help to get that talent to where he or she needs to be, or where they need to be, and not just get the talent to where they need to be, but also like figure out how to monetize the talent and figure out how to draw some of the value from monetizing that talent back to the place where the talent was minted, so it can mint another one and create that cyclic flywheel effect. I think that's really how I would describe it. Obviously, like different parts of the industry have different nuances. Like music is pretty different from film. Fashion is there, comedy, art, performance art, theater, whatever. It's broad, but there's just common threads and just lack of infrastructure, poor funding, which is also a reflection of lack of infrastructure and structure, because funding typically is attracted by investors are looking to make their money back. If you provide a system where it's clear how they are going to make their money back, how the thing works, I don't think anyone is choosing to just not invest because they don't want. If you can show them that if they invest, they'll get whatever, like they will invest.
Yeah.
The other problem is on us, our government, we the practitioners, and some of these issues are just macroeconomic, right? It's like you can't outgrow the economy that you exist in. You cannot create more value than exists within the economy. Like no matter how hard you work, how talented you are, you can't out-create the GDP of like physical location that you exist in. So that's definitely a cap that already exists. And so that's why it almost feels like sometimes these problems are like colossal, like they are not solvable, because where you dig, analyze, the roots is like systemic. It's government, it's policy, it's economy, and there's no single creative that has any power to do anything to solve that at its roots. You can solve it at a small scale, maybe for a specific group of people, for yourself, for your family, make money, for your community, for your company, for your group. But as a whole, for the industry, I think that would require like a concerted effort, between practitioners, talent, government, financiers, etc. But one thing, like there's a lot of opportunity here, and that's why the work that we're doing is important. People who are not just building to extract, like, oh, there's money here, let's just figure out how to make as much of it in like next 5 years, and when the thing dries, that's the end. But people who are building real things that, when we look at, like when I think about Talk Sound, it's like I think about something that I want to outlive me, and like when I think I remember one time I was in Paris and I think I saw, I don't know, maybe it was a Nike shop or something. And I was like, I want We Talk Sound to be like Nike. I want We Talk Sound to be like everywhere. To be like, why is there no Nigerian brand that's like just global like this? That like, it's just a part of our life. Like, it's like, even the people who have the resources or more resources and have the cloud or whatever to build things like that. For some reason, it just feels like they are either not interested, they're not ready to take the risk or to do the work. And it's like everybody knows Nike. Even people who can't afford Nike, people who live in impoverished places know what the logo means.
Yeah,
They
just
know like, and they're like, yeah, this is like, what is our equivalent of that? Like, what have we built that everybody can just aspire to want to own one or to want to be connected to? And for me, that's how I see it. But there aren't a lot of people who are building like that. There's a few people who are, but that's not the majority. Because I guess the incentive is very little. And people who have the resources to have already escaped poverty and they've escaped the trenches. And so I guess they're just like, why should I care about doing all of that? So that's how I would describe the industry. It's like a lot of potential, underfunded and undersupported.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you summarized it that the industry is just spewing with potentials, right? Because I remember, and I'm sure testimony to remember this. Your high school, there's always one guy that is like a good rapper. It's like, guy, just continue with this rapping thing and take us out of poverty. But just because of how life is, they would, have to like go to engineering school, go to KPMG or something like that.
That in fact, now that you said it, it just reminds me of two rappers actually. When I was in like not just high school, I think it was in college. I could actually bet on them if there was like if we have these prediction markets today, and I'm betting on people's future, I would have bet that these people would eventually become superstars. And I'm actually just going to drop their names here in case I don't know how this podcast is going to go far, in case anyone ever finds them. So one of them is Lil Dozy. That was his name. Lil Dozy. These guys rap were like crazy. I felt like, no, this guy is going to go global. The second one was Rap Tibia. And in fact, there was a time Fino came to my school and he was like, he won the best rapper. He came out and he was rapping. He was like rapping and everyone was just following. In my mind, I thought that these guys were going to be like, but I don't know. I don't know no Lil Dozy. I don't know no Rap Tibias. And I think it's the same thing across areas. But again, there's one particular question I wanted to ask when you were talking about this context of infrastructure, which is actually the core of what we are talking about.
Yeah.
But like an ignorant music person or an ignorant person, someone ignorant about the African music space, how do you describe monetization across the value chain? What does that value chain look like? And what does monetization look like? Yeah, across. Can you just walk us through what it is?
So in music, it's generally agreeable that there's like three sides to the music business, right? There's let me say there's two sides actually, but on that one, there's two. So there's two sides. There's the recorded music, which is like go to a studio, make a song. And there's performance, which is like stand on a stage and sing to people. Recorded, there's every song split into two sides. There's the master, which is like that's the product. Like when you go into the studio and create a song, that's master. The other side is publishing, which is like rights that are due to the composition behind the song. So the product itself is master. The underlying composition of the product is publishing. That's under recorded music. So in fact, some people see it as two different music industries. There's live music industry and recorded music industry. And it's possible for you to be a superstar in the live industry. You're not that big in the recorded, like your music is not streaming as much, people are not buying it as much. But if you announce tickets, you're selling. There's more money in live in general than in recorded. Like live is where most artists make. When you check artist net worths, it's like, yeah, that's why you see J. Cole just did a tour, gross 100 million. Brother Boy did one show and he made this million. It's usually bringing people out, selling tickets. That's live. Recorded music, master is more who funded the record. So if you're signed to a label, a traditional label, the label typically in the past, now things are changing. There's more awareness, and artists have more leverage, etc. But traditionally, like label own the master, you would probably own. They'll give you a percentage split on it after they recoup what they spent on creating it and marketing it. But like in terms of the master is basically like the IP. Like the label typically would own like the product is for them essentially. Publishing is just use songwriters, producers who actually compose the music. So typically labels should not like own parts of publishing, but obviously everything is negotiable. But that's just breaking down like how one artist, one song, the streams. Now, even within publishing, there's like different worlds there. There's mechanical royalties, which is like, when someone plays your song on Spotify, it generates like the master royalties, which is goes to the label, the artists. It generates another money, which is due to the songwriters. Some people are not aware of that and they never collect that. So that's where education is a part of the infrastructure that we need to have, because publishing as a whole is something that's relatively new in terms of people understanding it in this market. So then there's performance royalties, which is outside of performance fees or anything, which is in the live music industry. This is under publishing, which is basically when your song or your composition is played in public. Like, so of course you guys are in America, so you know this. Like if you go to a bar, a mall, wherever, and they are playing songs, there's money. Every single time that song is played, there's money that goes back to the publisher. So as an artist, you sign to a publisher. A publisher is a person that can collect money. There are also CMOs, collection societies. These are they typically are non-profits. There are societies within each country that artists sign up to, and then they collect, they typically collect performance royalties. So in Nigeria now, if you've ever heard of Kuson, or I think the other one is MCSN. So these agencies or these bodies are supposed to collect like money when your song is played on the radio, at the bar. In the US, the equivalent is like BMI or ASCAP, if you guys are ahead of BMI. UK, PRS. In France, SACEM. But one of the fundamental problems that we actually have, is good to highlight it here, is that our collection societies in Nigeria, let's just say they don't work. So that means that every time that like all the people can just use your music, like bars, restaurants, venues, whatever, like people are playing your music all the time, but you're not making any money from it. So that's the difference between like if your song blows up in the West, you're not just making streaming money, which is more like master. You're making publishing. There's also sync, which is another side of publishing, which is when your music is used in like a video game, a TV show, like in an ad, that also comes with its own. You get paid, you get royalties. So when the deeper you go into the music business, the more you realize that there's so many layers of monetization. Like it's so many. But when you look at it from a purely African perspective in terms of what actually exists to us, it's very little compared to the whole spectrum that is available. And that's why Afrobeats to the world, once you have the opportunity to, your music starts taking off in the Western markets, you just start receiving checks that you don't even understand. Like, oh my God, wow, I've never even heard about this country before. But I have this £10,000 check that just came in from a country I've never been to or heard of, because maybe one of my songs is big and someone keeps playing it on the radio and then it sort of blew up there. In Nigeria, it's just typically streaming, which is very little as well, because that depends on, there's layers to streaming, any streaming platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple, But Apple is completely premium. So yeah, like those ones aren't even, they're not doing free with you. But it's like Spotify, for instance, there's like free tier, is premium tier. Free tier means that you are going to be hearing ads. And that means that the only way the artists who you're playing on the free tier can earn money is money, the percentage split from the advertising. Premium tier, yes, like you've actually paid the subscription, and so the artist is gonna get. But it also gets more complicated when you realize that its subscription in Nigeria can be like $1 or less when it is $10 somewhere else. So, and the way that streaming money is distributed is basically it's based on number of variables. It's not a flat fee. It's like where person listened from, whether they're a free user or a paying user, just like those sorts of factors factor in. So the real money that Nigerian artists have been enjoying locally is performance money. It's like, oh, brand books you to come and do a show, someone books you for their wedding, someone's doing concerts. And even that is not really driven by ticket sales because the economy is bad. So a lot of free tickets are given out. So at the end of the day, you can say that it is brands like corporate brands and HNIs that are financing the music industry locally in terms of the money that's actually coming back to artists. Because streaming money, if you isolated just your Nigerian part of your streaming money, it's very tiny compared to what you made from the rest of the world. Right, so you've seen cases where you'll be looking at back end and you see that you got 10,000 streams from somewhere in Europe, and you're making the exact same money as 400,000 streams from Nigeria. So does it not pay you from a purely business point of view? Does it not pay you to focus more on the markets where even if you just get 50,000 streams, you are going to make more money than getting maybe 1 million streams from Nigeria? So that is what monetization, that's literally like just fragmenting, breaking into pieces of what monetization looks like for like someone who's doing music from Nigerian market. Some parts of Africa are more developed, like South African market is way more advanced, like in terms of publishing, in terms of like their CMO, like Nigeria, however, there's lots of issues. So as an artist, like let me now speak from an artist perspective. I'm an artist. What I want ideally in today's music industry is the pathway is typically I have a song, I believe in this song, I've not put the song out, but I know how to use TikTok. Because TikTok is free to use. I don't need a label, I don't need anyone to come and fund me to do that. I start making videos on TikTok. I make a shit ton of videos. One day I wake up and I'm like, shit, one of these videos has gone viral. People start using my sound to make their own videos. Then more people see it. It starts going viral. Note that I've not even released the song yet. Before I release the song, once it starts going viral, all the labels are in my DMs and my email. I want this song. But you know what's different now? Labels aren't really trying to sign you anymore. I mean, there's still like Maven, Chalk City, who still operate in a more traditional way, but like the new school industry is dominated more by distribution companies or labels functioning as distribution companies. And so it's like, I've seen that there's proof of concept that this song is going to work because there's maybe 5,000 videos on TikTok that people have made. That means that if we promote it and release the song, it can do millions of streams because people clearly like it. So I want to license the song from you. But I don't want just this song. I want you to license this song with me, a remix to this song. So we'll get a bigger artist to do a remix and then give me an EP. So 3 other songs. So original song, remix, 3 other songs, drop an EP. For all of this, I will give you $50,000. Maybe split between 20K for you as an advance for you that you can take and go and do whatever you want to, and 30K into like creating the music and marketing the music. A typical artist who has not seen that kind of money in their life before, or anything close to that, obviously is going to say yes. They say yes. That happens. Label licenses the song for maybe 7 years, a 7-year term. they'll retain the song for longer if they've not recouped. So this money is recoupable, by the way. This 50K is recoupable. It's not, they're not dashing you. The music, the 5 songs need to make back that 50K before the rights reverts back to you. Else, we're going to hold on to the rights of this song until we make our 50K back. But obviously, as an artist, like it's not really your business, but you can always make more songs and go and repeat that process. And the visibility that this money that they're spending on you will give you leverage to make bigger songs, and basically can blow up your brand and become big. So you don't mind sacrificing, no matter what the terms are at this point. You probably don't mind sacrificing these 5 songs to get a bigger spotlight. It's like if you're raising VC, but you've raised an angel round before you even in the beginning. You're not raising that round at the best of terms, because if I'm a rich guy and you bring your idea to, I can give you 20K and take whatever percentage, because at that point you've not proven anything. But you want to take my 20K because you realize that with that 20K, you can use it to scale to a point where you're raising your next round, you have more leverage, and then that continues. So it's similar. And so label is most likely an international label or a local label that's partnered with an international one. They take the music, they do marketing, all of that. There's also a lot of shrimp farming, which is using bots and those sorts of illegal systems to sort of create a perception that more people are listening to your music than they actually are. The song goes up on the charts, people then think like, oh my god, this song is doing so well, so it must be good. And then it's reverse psychology. Then people now like it and it becomes real, and the song actually takes off. In some cases it doesn't work and it really backfires, and everybody knows, because a song that's number 5 today is now like number 150 in 1 week. You can tell that there was something weird that went on. But yeah, that happens. The artist releases the song goes off, they get a bigger artist to do the remix, shoot a video, then the artist drops the EP. And all this happens in the space of like 6 months. 6 months ago, you didn't know this artist existed. 6 months time, the artist has one hot song, a bunch of other songs. They have it, they've gotten some money. That's now fresh. They've now bought a car, whatever. But you know what? What typically happens is that happens, and the artist cannot replicate that success again. So after that 20K that you've collected, to now see another money will now be hard. Like to get someone who's going to invest again in you, because now first of all, you're not controlling the rights to those 5 songs, because you've not made that money back. And if you are trying to go to someone else to like say, oh, I have these new songs I want to license to you, they most likely want your old catalog as a part of this new deal. But you don't have it to give because you've not serviced your previous debt, essentially. And so you can now be stuck. And that in a case where it works out, the artist becomes big. The artist, maybe the label now says, oh, actually, you're doing well. We want to extend this situation with you. But the thing is, because you've now collected, and after the success of the EP, now want to give you 100K. Like, just take this 100K, do whatever you want with it. But you know what? You're going to have to deliver 10 songs. So the artist now starts dropping music every month and being desperate, because now the artist knows that I'm now minus 100K. Like, I need to make this 100K back. Then label also figures out how to, immediately they start thinking, how do we make this thing cross over to the UK? Because that's like the easiest, Nigerians are a lot in the UK. The culture is similar. Like, a lot of things are similar to the point where that's like the lowest hanging fruit. The US is like the hard one that no one really has cracks like that. So the label starts thinking about that. The artist starts making music with the understanding that my goal here is to make sure this music pops up in the UK, because it's Nigerian fans. So the artist loses the essence of the kind of music that they were making initially that made people like them. And I'm sure you can think of some artists like that already, because we've seen it happen and it is happening. And yeah, that's just what it is. And if it works out, the artist becomes bigger. The artist first goes on a club tour in the UK with one song, but people book them because the song is really hot. 2 more songs, 2 more features, and they just keep releasing a lot of music. And the artist is now getting booked in Canada and US, and it might start with like 500 capacity venues, 1K, and yeah, the artist just continues to churn out music. But what has effectively happened is that music has now become that there's a lack of longevity to everything. The music is like fast food. You're hopping on trends. You're not even like in like 6 months, you probably won't be able to remember. If they say, "Oh, 6 months ago, what were you listening to?" It's like I can't remember because like so much music has come out. Every Friday is like, and that's what the industry has come to. And for me, I keep telling people that like the the way financing happens in any industry is a big determinant of like the quality of and how everything plays out. And sometimes fans don't understand that. Fans are like, oh, why is this person releasing music so much? The quality of the music is not this. These people are not. But it's like because the way that money is coming in, the labels, the financiers aren't trying to buy into you as an artist. So they don't have an incentive to help you grow your brand as an artist. It's the product. So now it's like you are the creator of the product, but the product is what I want. I don't necessarily want you as the artist. I want the music you're making. So if I'm giving you money, it's on you and your team to figure out how to use that money to actually grow your brand. Because you can have songs that are bigger than you, and that's now happening a lot, where someone has this viral song, the song even crosses over through TikTok to the US, Europe, whatever. But you can't recognize the artist. Like if the artist walks into a room that you're in, you're like, who is this? If you go to a show and the artist is performing and they call the name of the artist, you know the name of the artist. It's when it now gets to this part of the song that you know, you're like, so this artist has sang this song. So that's happening. And I think that that's one of the structural challenges. The labels and the way they're investing now is not they're not investing in equipping the infrastructure of the industry. It's extractive. It's like I want to give you this money, give me this music, license this music to me for 10 years. That end of business. I don't care if your industry develops, if your industry does not develop, if you as an artist, if your brand grows, if it doesn't, it's these 10 songs you're giving me that are my headache. Now, the artist will collect money and what they will optimize for is, new house, new car, da da da.
Man,
and so,
life.
So I think that more people need to, there needs to be people that are building more things like the talk sound, where it's not just that you are mining talents for a label in America to come and extract from and just throw some money at you. It's that you're building a system that can produce more of that talent, that can tell the stories around the talent, that can create the events that will put the talent in the spotlight, that can, shape the narrative and do the marketing to help the talent. And then we now need people to come and invest in a system like the talk sound, as opposed to finding one person that has a viral song on TikTok that lives in Ikorodu or somewhere that's never seen money before that can throw 20K out and it's going to be like, oh my God, this has changed my life. We need people to invest in systems that can create hundreds of situations like that. Instead of isolated cases. And I think that is really, really the meat of it. In terms of when I think about my issue with the industry and what my thesis is around how the industry should work, it is that people need to build more systems. And those systems need to get investments. And people need to now, the investors need to buy into the growth of the system, not of one artist or two artists. So that system can then create, look at how Maven has gone from local label, they got PE funding, the works, the artists off, and then they essentially got acquired by Universal. That is a good case study for what should be happening in the industry. But what everybody else wants to do is just like find one boy, super talented, collect money, keep it moving. The artist career, whatever happens after that, that's the artist business. Find the next artist. It's like fast food. So yeah, I know I've said it a lot, but yeah.
I know this is exactly what we needed to really understand what is happening inside out. Because again, fans and people that are just listening to the music don't have this perspective. But just one question to understand that is, when did this happen? When did this shift of? Because I remember record labels back in the day, like Moit Record was there. We had that from Don Jazzy. We had Chocolate City, was a big record label. We had this guy, the Kenny Music. We had a bubbling infrastructure of talent. When did this shift of extractive investments start to happen?
I would say that a few things are, I wouldn't say directly responsible, but are factors. Um, First of all, the streaming era, like that has really changed everything. And this is not just a local thing, even globally. Like there, I don't know if you've seen these arguments around how like streaming itself as a whole, as a concept, does not pay the artist, pays the fans more because now you can pay $10 or in Nigeria 1,000 naira to listen to all the music that has ever existed in history. When before, you needed to buy one album for $10 or for 200 naira, 150 naira. Now, 1,000 naira, you can listen in for a month. You can listen to any, like all the music, whether it's Michael Jackson, whether it's Beethoven or Sheyi Vibes or Ashake or Lil Wayne, is on demand. And so the switch to digital, I think, is probably at the core of all of this. Like the switch to digital is at the core. The artists as well. There's been the research. I wouldn't say resurgence, but there's been the uprising of the ideology around independence. So the investments that I wouldn't say is completely. It's not all negative, right? It's worse for us because of our own lack of infrastructure in our industry. Those deals aren't like the nature of licensing deals. It's not a bad. Inherently, it's not bad. It's an interesting style of like doing music business. But if you're doing this in an industry where an artist, even an artist that has only 300 paying fans, there's venues for them to do shows, and so they can make money from that. There's many media platforms that can tell their story. There's already so much infrastructure already built that. But in Nigeria, it's more extractive in our industry because no one is actually trying. It has now distracted from trying to build the infrastructure. It's like, I don't really care if the Nigerian music industry as a whole grows. Like, how does that concern me? All I need to do is find the one guy who can make the songs that I can sell to Nigerians and Africans in the US and the UK and make a lot of money from that. I don't like the industry itself is not anyone's business. And that's why it's all a shit show. Also, like TikTok and COVID, TikTok really helps in terms of like Afrobeats in the world, songs blowing up. You can make a video in your house in Lekki, and in 1 week, Will Smith is making a video with the same song. It's your song, or Snoop Dogg is, or all those things happened, and that brought a lot of foreign investments in. And again, the people, it's such a deep thing because foreign investments, like we established earlier, it's like when you study a new market, you also are going to do a risk assessment, and you realize that, do I really want my money tied into some company here long term? Like, given the economy, given all the indices, does it make sense? Versus like, do I just play the game in a way where it's like I'm hedging my bets? I can just, if I have like a $1 million budget for 2 years, whatever, I can just sign, or I can just find the artists that are already doing well, sign them, and not take as much bets.
I see.
So there's that part as well, where it's like the state of the economy and just the lack of structure is not encouraging for me to take those sorts of like long-term bets. Also, in terms of like how many companies really are that investing as well, right? Because people, I've been talking to investors very actively for like the past, I'll say 4 years, and not even from a perspective of I'm trying to raise money, because I wasn't even trying to raise money until now. I'm just starting to get into like, oh yeah, I think we've now got to the point where we need like to raise. But it was just like I was trying to understand like what exactly is the challenge here, what's the hurdle here, and it's like, yeah, capital will always chase and find investment opportunities. I don't think that if you have money, you're looking for where your money will go and it's multiplying, and you know that people are not always running away. So there's also trust issues. There's the economy. There's people in the past who have had certain positions, who have been privileged to get certain kinds of investments, and they've squandered it. There's court cases on right now with different labels and stuff. There's just individuals that have also been hired by some of these international labels to lead the operations that have not done a great job, that have siphoned money. So yeah, it's a complex. It's just like the Nigerian problem. It's like you, like we can say, oh yeah, there's obviously like bad leadership, but it's like it's also enabled by bad citizenry, and then that then creates this cycle. So it's just the same thing, and I guess everybody is just trying to hold on to their like do the least risky things possible, because there are deals where people have also taken bets in the wrong direction because they were ill advised and they invested millions in artists or in albums or whatever. The artist first things like the artist goes and buys a car and buys a house, and they are not channeling the money that was actually promoting the music of the artist. So I feel like it's a reflection of what is obtainable in the industry. We are getting kind of what we deserve. It's just there's a few people who are building things that are real that I feel should not have to suffer the consequences of the bad decisions of some other people.
Yeah.
Like people who are building real things that you can see that yes, these guys know what they're doing. I think, and that's why for me, got to a point where I started to travel more. I started to make, to network outside of this market more, because I realized that I didn't want any middleman in between me and whoever I'm trying to, raise money from or partner with or whatever. I didn't want any, like, there's no reason why I need some industry ego or whatever to be the one who I'm kowtowing to then help get a deal or an investment or whatever. Like, and thank God, like I was able to work at Google, I was able to be exposed to, the world like bigger than here. And then you realize that if you're building something real, if you can articulate well, you can explain what you're doing, your vision well, clearly, and you have integrity, and there's stuff that proves that this is someone that's worth betting on. You will find your own opportunities. Sure. It's just that historically access has been a problem, right? So many people who are building great things can't even travel because they don't have the money to, they don't have visas. So it's like only a few people have had the access to be in certain rooms, meet certain people, and they're the ones who all the opportunities then come into the industry through. And they then decide who gets what, and that has now gone on for a while to the point where a lot of mess has happened. But now there's people like us who are able to sort of break some of those barriers. Like I was at the Grammys in Feb, and that's like a big deal for me, and for not just for me, but for everyone who identifies what I'm doing. My friends, my family, my team, people that just support me, Talk Sound, and my peers in the industry. Because it's like we can get in these rooms ourselves. We don't need to wait for be someone's boy before. Like you can actually build your thing, go talk to the same people that these people are talking to, and express yourself. And if they like it, you might get the opportunity directly. And when you do things differently, do things properly, so that you don't become another case of another failed investment or another person that stole money or whatever. So that's sort of the state of things.
Wow. I really love how you've been able to figure out the problem, which is like 90% of the work. Like, what's the problem with the industry? And now that you figured out problem out, like your positioning with Toxan as like a solution or a fix to that problem. I want us to talk about Afrobeats a little, right? The actual genre and what's going on. What would you say? And like a lot of people are saying now, I've been seeing a lot of tweets and opinions of people right now saying that because of the Afrobeats to the world agenda, we are lacking that creativity and that Nigerian, that African sound in it. What do you think about that perspective?
Yeah, I feel like I already touched it in my last answer. Like it's people are optimizing for what is going to work economically or financially. The fans will see things from their perspective and it makes sense. Like they want music that appeals to them. That's their like. I mean, a fan is not concerned with how you're going to recoup your advance or like that's not their business. But on the other side, on the business side, yes, like if this is how you're making money and recouping is important, then labels are going to make decisions on who to sign based on whose music can scale outside of here. Artists are going to try to make music that they feel can scale outside of here, and that affects the music, and that affects what the fans get. And it's just what it is. Like, I don't think there's really anything to be done to that about that. It's just the reality. Like, there just isn't money locally. Like, that's the most straightforward way to say it. There just isn't money locally. And because there isn't money locally, and you've collected XYZ amount that you want to make back, then you're gonna appeal to the market where there's more money. And I guess what the fans could do more is listen to his, instead of waiting to be spoon fed by like the charts, or actually let's go back to the era where it was an exciting thing to discover new artists. Because I think that's one thing that has died as well. It's really just we're all listening to the same artists. I remember SoundCloud era, Alter era, when we were also like just starting off making music. There were a bunch of artists, like we used to actually take pride in listening to artists that nobody else knew. Like, oh, have you heard of Umags? Have you heard of this person? Have you heard of, do you listen to like Santi? Do you listen to this? Do you listen to LOS, SDC, all these guys? Like, it was a thing of pride. Like, it was an exciting thing, like to put someone on to new music, even outside of Nigeria. Like in uni, I used to be the person that used to tell people like, oh yeah, listen to Joey Badass, listen to this person. He has dropped a new album. I feel like that culture in general has kind of died or has slowed down. And maybe it's going to come back now that everybody's complaining that, Afrobeats, the big artists are not dropping great music as much or as like before. I guess that might now have this cyclic effect where people now start checking out more underground, more emerging stuff. And that's kind of already happening. Like, there's a UG scene, that's what they call it now. This underground scene that has it's like the Alter era back. So people like Marvel sort of came from that scene, but Marvel has gone very mainstream now. But it's like Say Level 10, there's like Atal Go, Egerton. There's a bunch of these, and it's very hip hop influenced, and they are now doing well like that. And their music is like very hip hop influenced, but it's very local as well. There's also like the Afro Adura and like street pop guys, like the Bad Boy OMLs, the Ribinas, the Valorant Kings, TML Vibes. Those guys are still making, stuff that's resonating locally.
Yeah.
But sometimes like the fans just want to listen to, the fans literally want to go to Apple top 100 charts or Spotify top 50.
I just hit shuffle.
Play what is there, what is like already on the charts. Like, why can't you find something new? So and because marketing music in Nigeria is now so expensive. Because again, Afrobeats to the world. I think that's something else that should be addressed. When Afrobeats to the world started, all that money came in. The initial rush of the money, people got rich. People got influencers. They're charging in dollars.
Yes.
Central rate card dollar. Influencers made so much money. Label execs made so much money. Artists that were signed then made so much money. Everybody involved in the ecosystem, the money was just flying around. Now the chickens have come home to roost. Everybody's crying about, oh, there's no investment anymore, blah, blah, blah. It's like everything is now so overpriced. The artists too, their booking fees. I was asking around because I was trying to help some people from Zimbabwe book artists recently. I was hearing numbers. I was like, huh? Why are you charging this? Why are you charging this? Like, why is anybody even paying it? So it's like they also price themselves out of the local market. That's why they weren't doing shows in Nigeria, because nobody could afford to pay them. It was a rush for a period. Now, no longer as things have obviously changed. Everybody's more mindful with how they're investing, and that's now trickled down to everybody in the industry. But marketing became so expensive.
Yeah.
For what ROI? Like, why wouldn't I just take this money and market in South Africa? Well, get maybe 5x. Same amount of, I'll make 5x more money. Or America. Okay, why would I pay an influencer in Nigeria this to make a video to my song, when even if I get whatever millions of streams in Nigeria, it's still not enough money to do anything. So all those things have happened, and it's now like we are seeing the effects of a lot of bad decisions that have been made maybe over since like 2019, 2020. till like 2025,
Mm.
2024, 2025. I think now, yeah, it has kind of dried up. But that's not to say that for me, I think that real, people who are building real things that are real, people who are building, solid businesses that I don't think that it affects us as much. Because the joke that me I always crack when people say these things that even when the money was flowing, it did not share it to my side. So what it does to me now, it actually doesn't make a difference. Like I'm just doing my thing. I was always doing my thing. It's not like there was a point where
Yeah.
my hands were in the pot of the Afrobeat to the world, pots where everybody was just cashing out, people were buying houses and building cars. Like that I wasn't a party to that. So now that that's right up, I'm still not. Whoever is going to invest in me won't invest. It's not. It won't be about there's a boom or there's no boom. It will be about me and what I'm building. That's why they want to invest, not because exactly. So yeah, that's where I leave it.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Dolapo. It has been a pleasure hearing all of this perspective from you. And I think there's a good similarity with like the music scene and the tech scene in Nigeria too, as well, in terms of there was a time where you just had to like slap a pitch deck of how many people in Africa.
I wonder what I was doing in these times, to be honest.
Like I wonder what I was doing. And then you would get, Sequoia and everybody to just give you a lot of money to go figure things out. I think now it's dried up as capital would.
I think the difference is just that, like, in tech, at least, like music is just worse because in tech, there's a few things that you can point to as like,
yes,
there's a few
the result.
There's like Paystack, Flutterwave, Money Point, there's PVest, there's Kuda, there's a bunch of things that's like, yes, they created an ecosystem. That's what it is. It's like in music, it's like most of the money just went to a few pockets.
I see.
And the industry is sort of the same way that it was before the money. Like, what are the things that we can point to that, this has done for us as an industry?
I see.
In tech, there's things that, like, bro, if like, I would say in maybe like 6-7 years ago, how many people were using cards to pay online? And like, there are just a few things that were not popular then that now are a part of our everyday lives. Like, because of these companies have actually changed lives. Like, every time I see people tweet about like how they were able to buy a car or whatever, like that is like, these are like companies that have changed the patterns of how we live and they've braved the odds to do that. And yes, there's bad examples as well in tech. There's people who collected the rest of money and bought house, whatever, and ran away. But there's things you can point to. Music is like, even the people who, the biggest artists, the big three or whatever, what have they done for the infrastructurally? I'm not saying just going to the club and throwing money or dashing in some money or whatever. I don't care about all of that. From an infrastructural point of view, in terms of the things we actually need, in terms of like education, like there's Music Business Academy for Africa by Godwin Tom. That's like an amazing thing that exists in the industry. That has changed, that has at least provided like an entry level of knowledge. Like before, people didn't even know anything. Now there's a baseline, like, okay, you at least know what publishing is, you need to sign a contract, you know what split sheets are. There's stuff like that. There's people who have built like there's turntable charts. They've been hard at work at building like billboard charts for Nigeria. There's We Talk Sound, like sort of like media creative ecosystem that we've built. There's all of that. But if you ask all these people that have built those things, like how did you build them? What support have you got? It's mostly you're braving the odds, like you are in the trenches. Bootstrapping, like me, I had to hold a job for how many years? Do you think that if I was building with Talk Sound in an industry where there was a lot of support from government, from private, I wouldn't have needed to be doing a 9 to 5 for that long. I should have been focusing only on with Talk Sound. Like years ago, because it should be about some of these things are the important thing for the ecosystem. Let's empower this person to build it as quickly and as large as possible. But it's like, I have to think about my own life. So that's the issue. So even the people who have benefited the most from the movement, the biggest artists who their lives have completely changed, the best of foundation, which is like, how does that, like, that's not infrastructural development. That's just like charity on a very small scale. Like infrastructural development is things like MBA for Africa. That's education, charts, making sure that our collection societies work so people can actually make money off their music being used. Funding agencies, funding media companies, like funding the tech that can power the ecosystem. Those sorts of things, anti-piracy. Those are the things that actually make sure that whatever it is, like all those monies are coming, at least then a percentage of it gets in the hands of people who are building good things. But what have the biggest artists done with their platforms, with the money they've made? They've made tens, maybe hundreds, I don't know, billions of dollars. What have they invested? What have they funded to ensure that after them, this system continues? Because like the tap was flowing, people enjoyed. The tap is no longer flowing as much. If the tap gets completely dry, we should have at least been able to do something with what was flowing. To the point where even if they all come and say we're not doing it again, like we haven't tired of your market, there's something we've done going to generating value for us.
Yes.
But where are those things? It's things that private individuals have done, like me, and we've gone through blood, sweat, and tears to even build what we have. And that's why I always tell people, it's like, you need to be aggressively ambitious outside of this country to get the resources you need to finance whatever you're trying to do in the country. Because the people who have gotten the resources, who the resources are passing through, are not going to willingly think about the fact that some people are actually building things that would help make sure that this ecosystem is sustained. And so for me, I just realized that, I have to meet more people. I have to do more podcasts. I have to, make myself more visible. I have to empower my team to also be doing the same. I have to empower them within my own network as I can. And we have to be able to go and attract the capital, the funding, the partnerships, by ourselves, for ourselves, and then to benefit the ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Dolapo. This was really a very, very nice conversation. In fact, I want to just continue, but I just took a look at the time. I just get and I'm like, oh my God, we've already spent like 1 hour plus on this very interesting conversation. But before we end it, this is like absolute last question. We wanted to do a fire round, but we'll leave that one for the end because if we start telling you Davido or Wizkid, Burna Boy or this, I think we might start causing a lot of commotion. One more question is for like a 22-year-old or a 20-year-old in Lagos, Nairobi, Cape Town, who wants to become an entrepreneur in the music space. Like they want to be an operator. They don't want to be a musician. They don't want to be an artist. They want to be an operator. What should they be thinking about? How should they do that for the next 10 to 20 years?
Okay, cool. I love the question. I think I like solutions oriented. Like when I have all these kind of conversations, for me, I always quickly get to, like, this is what I think the problem is. So I think this question helps. I would say that don't look down on skills that you've gotten from other stuff that's not creating or music. I think that's really what will take us out of the hood. I think it's people like us that have experience like other industries and have skills that go beyond the music and the creativity that can really unlock new opportunities, new ways of thinking, new strategies, new like blue oceans essentially. Like I feel like I have an article that I wrote on Punch. The original title for that article is "The Nigerian Music Industry Cannot Save Itself." It's also a paper for Atlantic University, like Lagos Business School. They did like a journal, like their first ever journal on Nigerian music industry. Like I wrote a paper on inside that journal, and that's the title. It's like Nigerian music industry cannot save itself, something like that. Like people in the industry, the core people, like the musicians, the managers. I don't know that they have enough like of a broad perspective or a skill set to figure out what the solutions to these sorts of very fundamental problems would be. I think it's people that are coming from finance, tech, banking, government, like whatever, like marketing, that have a more robust way of thinking that can actually like go to first principles. Because the thing is, we need to solve our problems from first principles. We don't need more people that are just going to come and continue what's being done or copy and paste. And we now have like 50 of the exact same kind of platform, but none of them is really doing well. We need people who are going to build it from what makes sense to them. Like, this is how I see the problem based on my exposure, my experience, the way I think. This is what I think we should be doing, and I'm going to build that, as opposed to this is how they usually build it, or this is what exists in the US, and so I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I think that's very key for me. Like, skills matter. Like, the music industry is not going to teach you a lot of skills. You need to kind of learn it yourself. People in the industry are not the most organized, like they're not the most structured. So if you're graduating and you're just trying to come into the music industry, you need to be very careful where you work in the beginning of your career, because there are certain basic skills that everybody at a KPMG would have in first year. Like, literally, like, for you to have made it there, you must know how to do certain things. Like, if you don't know how to do certain things, then how did you even pass the process? That you would be surprised to find people who have worked in creative space for 5 years can't do it. So if you go and that's where you go and like lay your, like that's where you're going to set your tent in a place like that, you're never going to be able to compete on a world-class level. And what is now happening, what I'm seeing that's happening a lot, is that artists will start off with their friends, a team, whatever, Nigeria. The moment they get the Afrobeats to the world, and look, they blow up somewhere else and they start partnering with global labels. Look at their management. Look at Ashake's management. Now, if you've seen the documentary reports, you see how, like, because they now realize that, oh, I need more. And what I need at this stage of my career, I don't know that the former person can do that. Like, it's like what got me here is not what to take me to where I'm trying to go. Now I'm trying to be beside Drakes of this world and Travis Scott of this world and whatever. I'm sorry. This is where the road ends for us. I have to now go and find a manager who's based in LA or wherever, or London, who can help me unlock more doors. And so if you're trying to be an executive or a manager or whatever, if you don't upgrade yourself, the artist is going to outgrow you. This even applies to all forms, even the video directors, agencies, the artists are the artists are like the only people really benefiting from this thing. Because the moment the real money starts coming in, they start touching the real money. They then realize that, oh, the person that shoots my videos is no longer good enough. Now I need to go and find the person that shoots videos for Travis Scott or for Rihanna or for whoever. Like, and so if you are also not, as the artist is growing and their numbers are growing and they are now having meetings with execs from LA, from Universal, from Sony, from this, from that. If you yourself, you're not even, you should be like one step ahead of your artist in terms of knowledge, in terms of exposure, in terms of your own branding. Like, you need to be at a level where the artist is not just going to reach you and then you feel like, oh, I gave 5 years of my life to this artist and the artist has tasted small abroad fame and I'm no longer good enough. So I would say, like, upskill like crazy. If you are gonna gain some experience outside of music, do that because it will be helpful. If not, if you want to work in music from the jump, work with people who clearly have a vision, who you actually learn real life skills from. Not just that you have someone that has proximity to artists, so you're following artists around and taking pictures and looking fly. That would be cool for a while. But at some point, the business is the business. Like, and none of that will help you get to beyond a certain level you need to actually have skills. You need to be able to do compelling presentations. You need to be able to speak well, communicate well, manage money and just numbers, data analysis, all those sorts of skills you need to gain. I think that those are probably the most important things I would say. Like don't just look at it like, oh, Jimmy is just the music industry. Don't get carried away. Like actually upskill yourself to the point where you're competitive in any industry that you work in. Like if you put yourself beside people that do the same thing that you're doing in tech, you should be able to stand on the same level, you should be on the same level with them. I would say a few things. That's why I would say that's the core. Everything else sort of depends on that. But if you have value by yourself and you continue to create the value and increase the value, you can change the industry because you are going to bring a perspective that people that have been in the industry for 20 years simply cannot see the thing that way because they've just been there and this is how they know how it's done. And they won't be radical enough to attempt to change it. And also, it will also protect your own place because the artists you're working with, whoever you're working with, will know that you have a lot of value. And they're not just going to leave you for the next person they just meet at the party in LA or because person has connected early and person has a degree. Their old manager is now no longer good enough for them. So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dolapo. I don't know. Is there any question you felt like we did not ask you or something you want to share?
I've said it all. Like I've said, I said more than I've ever said in any podcast.
All right. Thank you very much, Dolapo. And I really appreciate you coming here and appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, nice. And good luck with Talk Sound. And I think the next time we are connecting, we want to be hearing the millions of dollars raised.
People should you are the ones that are in California. Do the intros for me. That's what I want.
Of course. For the intros, I don't think that is even a challenge. I think the most important thing, as you mentioned, is that you are building something very good. And I think when you are bringing this to the front of any investor, they actually that is interested in investing in that space. I think it's something that is going to be easier. The most important thing right now is if the terms they are going to be presenting is something that you're going to be agreeing with. Yeah, I don't think you will run short of raising money, and in our own capacity, we also do our own in terms of that introduction. I don't think that would be a challenge. But that said, I think it was really nice having this conversation. And the next time I see you, we are talking, I want to see the millions raised, and most importantly, the lives touched by what you're building.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dolapo. All right, bye-bye.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, take care.